Hey, this is Lions with Nostalgia Goggles News, and the forecast for today is
Doom. The world is saved. The living room's dark, save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the once starry sky with whispers of morning.
So, George, from now on, I've decided that the BFG 9000 is going to stand for Best Friend George 9000.
Aw, because when you wield me, we kill demons left and right.
Yes.
Yeah, that is born fruit and born true in many of our experiences.
So what do we play? I feel like there's anyone who's still like, I wonder what they played this time. They're not going to get a lot of this episode.
To be fair, if they didn't get it from the title, you know.
I wonder how many. Somebody goes in blind, right? Surely.
Yeah, I mean, like maybe they're just like, ooh, new nostalgia goggles, and they like just press the button to play and then put it down, as they're cooking breakfast for their kids, and then all.
And filled with regret.
Yeah, like they just see the thing, they press the button, and they just hit the thing that says like cast to Alexa, so that way it's like filling their entire thing, and then we screamed at them. Yeah, but we played Doom 2, the proper Doom. I know that Doom has had many iterations, but when people think of the original Doom, they think of Doom 2. Like you don't think of Doom.
Yeah, I mean it's like Super Mario Brothers, right? You don't think of Super Mario Brothers, you think of it's like Tetris, right? You don't think of Tetris. No.
Well, no, Super Mario Brothers things hold is because when you think of Super Mario Brothers, you don't think of Mario Brothers, you think of Super Mario Brothers.
Oh yeah, they really did like using the word super to mean the next one.
Yes, and then Super Mario World, and then Super Mario Galaxy, and then the Super Mario Universe next, I guess.
Odyssey came after that.
No, that's no good for me. That doesn't work for me.
No, it totally works because they could no longer be bound by physical law, so they had to go into Greek myth.
Because I would have liked like Super Mario Universe and then Super Mario Multiverse.
I mean, Super Mario Odyssey is pretty damn close to Super Mario Multiverse. Like,
it is. Yeah.
But we didn't play that. We played Doom 2.
Yeah, we did. So, yeah, man. When did this come out?
This actually, so I was really relieved to see that this came out in September of 94 because all of my Nostalgia Goggles experience can be summed up as I played this on a Windows 95 PC. Like that's, and I mean that in every way you could possibly mean a Windows 95 PC. It was a gray Packard Bell. They don't even exist anymore. It had the colored stripes on the front. You had to reboot it into DOS to play the game. Like it would launch from Windows. Windows knew you were going somewhere in the house to play a game, but it went somewhere you couldn't see from Windows, right? Like it was a very Windows in the early 90s gaming experience. And there's so much stuff we will get into that is kind of related to that unique moment in history. But the biggest one is one of my biggest memories of playing Doom 2 is that I built a lot of terrible levels using the terrible level building software that came with it. And man, were they terrible. But I did all of the classics, right? The level that instantly kills you, the level that doesn't instantly kill you, but is so ridiculously hard that it just grinds your PC's ability to play it to a stop because there's just like layers of demons in all directions. The level where you're up like on a little plinth and they're all down low and you just like spin in circles and right, the things a dumb 12-year-old does because that's what you do. Like that is a lot of my nostalgia experience for Doom is being at that terminal at that old writing desk in the corner of the dining room making terrible levels.
So I've got three main things I remember, which is one, when I also booted this. So yeah, I loaded the computer, Windows 95, right? And then I had to go into the DOS prompt. And then I this is the definition of like I was a technician, not an analyst, in the sense that I knew what buttons to push, had no idea why I was pushing any of them. But I remember I would pull up the DOS prompt and then type C:/Doom and then enter and then Doom 2, and then it would load the game. You know, I didn't know what
and
DOS
then
was.
Doom happened.
And then Doom happened, you know? So I remember that. I remember just using the cheat codes just all the time cheat codes, you know, to the point where there were definitely some levels where I was like, I legitimately do not know how to beat this game without cheating. Like how would somebody do this? So I was a little apprehensive going into this playthrough because I was like, I don't think I've ever beaten this game without cheating. And then also using the level creator, but I actually didn't go the route you went. I more so recreated real places and then filled them with demons. So yeah, so I don't know what that says, but
I'm just wondering, is it possible to measure the number of government watch lists you just put yourself onto?
Yeah, probably. But yeah, no. So I remember specifically, I made one of my dad's office, and I remember that because I remember having to learning the fact that there are, and this is something that I actually have in my notes, that there are invisible walls within Doom that only affect monsters to keep them in certain areas.
Fencing, yes.
Yes. So the really funny and the side story they have for this is one of the things I was playing this game, and so I got to one area and there was a I do not know the names of all the demons off the top of my head. So, but anyway, so the little pink demon, you know,
yeah, the one that looks like really big mouth. They're kind of hunched over.
Yeah, like a bull demon.
Yeah, I kid you not. According to the end credits, that demon is called Demon.
Nice. So yes. So and so basically I opened a door and I immediately took a step back with my shotgun, and this little pink demon ran across the doorway and then ran back and then ran across the doorway and ran back. And so I'm sitting in my chair. So I turn over my shoulder. I'm like, hey, honey, so here's the funny thing is that there are invisible walls within Doom that keep monsters in a certain area. And then it hard left and started killing me. Like it ran out of the room and started mauling me to death. And so I immediately blew it away with my shotgun and was like, you see, so I thought this is what was happening, but it turns out that there was no fence there. I don't know why it hadn't cued into the fact that I was standing there, but yeah, it totally could have gotten me at any time. But yes, so I created a demonized version of my dad's office with different demons for each person within the office, scaling to eventually my dad, who was the boss. You know, like he was the big cyber demon, right? You know, and I said, this is the coolest thing ever, obviously. I would like to give this to people to play. And he said, under no circumstances can you give this to my subordinates, you weird child. You know, like I can't say, hey, my son made a hellscape of this office where each of us is our own little demon in hell. And I just could not wrap my mind around why this was an inappropriate use of company resources. I get it now, though.
Yeah.
So
that's maturity. That's understanding as an adult why, when a child, your father said to you, "No, you can't do this."
Yeah. No, this is a bad idea. Yeah. So I mean, and you know, from again, like it's just the innocence of childhood, where it's like I didn't mean it in a bad way. I was like, this is just a nice thing, you know, like I was thinking of people. It's like, yeah, I might not take it that way though. But yes, that was my nostalgia experience for this.
So I have a rare promotional segue. So, you know, at the top, we like to take a moment to thank people for subscribing to the show. And if you haven't already done that, you should go leave us a review in the Apple Podcasts, because apparently that still matters. And we do actually care, but it's weird that we're still beholden to Apple on this. And people following us and talking to us on Twitter. And here's my two things. I was tweeting that I was playing the game on Twitch, and someone replied to me on Twitter and said, wait, did you really play with the original controls? And I said, yes. And he basically said, oof. And I was like, yes. And then while streaming on Twitch, where you should also go follow me because I stream other stuff, but a lot of Nostalgia Goggles games, someone who had never, like, they knew Doom, like, colloquially, and, you know, just because of the pop culture, but they'd never played it, said, what is with that terrifying face at the bottom of the screen? And I was like, oh, that's the HUD. And she was just like, but why? Like, why is he looking around all terrified? Does he just look everywhere you go? And I was like, yeah, I guess this is kind of weird if all of your games literacy is in modern games. Like, I was trying to see it through their eyes, and I was just like, oh, that's weird. So this is actually my segue into the visuals, which is I really love the amount of mileage they get out of Doom Guy's face being at the bottom of the screen, because it tells you so much. It tells you like his emotional state, right? Because when you pick something up, he's like excited. When you pick up a gun, he looks the angry kind of excited. And like, you know, if he's hurt, he looks hurt. If he's really hurt, he looks really hurt. If he's dead, he looks dead. Like, they tell you a pretty substantial amount of information through just that little creepy floating face. Up to and including when you are killing people, he grits his teeth and looks super pissed. When you go into God mode, if you get the pickup or if you use the cheat code, he becomes completely passive and emotionless because now he is above it all. And like, that level of detail just permeates throughout the game, but it's all the examples you need of the love and care they put into all the blood and explosions and everything is like right there in Doom Guy's face.
Yep. Oh yeah, no, it's really fantastic. All the things you mentioned I love, especially like you said, is if you just hold down, you know, and just are firing like crazy, he will grit his teeth and lower his brows, and he's just kind of like, you know, like, oh, I gotta kill these things, which is interesting because of the reload time on the super shotgun. It's more than two blasts of the super shotgun. Is you have now been firing consecutively long enough to trigger the gritted teeth, oh my god face. But the one thing that I found about the face that I thought was particularly interesting is it will look in the direction of where the damage is coming from. So if somebody is shooting you on the left, he'll look to the left as he like is gritting his teeth and is taking damage. If the damage is coming from the right, he'll do the same, which is hypercritical considering like how little your viewpoint is and considering some of the enemy placement, which I'll get into later. But yeah, I mean, like if all of a sudden you're suddenly taking damage, you need to immediately know which direction to wheel around in to then kill that demon, because the way health is done is very interesting in this game, which also is a mechanical thing and we will get to later. But I thought that was really a great way to give the player that information, because kind of what they did in later games is they kind of colored the screen more, like the red would be on whichever side it was that you were taking damage in. Yeah, so I thought that was kind of a thing of the HUD that I don't think that I knew necessarily as a kid. But again, like when all of a sudden Doom Guy looks in that direction, you also look in that direction, you know? So it's not something that you need to consciously know that it's happening in order for you to, it's like, you don't know what was going on, but your brain did, you know? So like,
when it's, you know, your brain is pretty good at, like, there's no truly intuitive interface, but other human face looked in that direction, so I now want to look in that direction, is pretty damn close to truly intuitive, right? It's just when one monkey looks at a sound, all the other monkeys also look where that monkey looked, even if they didn't hear the sound, right? Like that's a pretty built-in thing, and it's actually a fairly elegant solution because modern games, as you mentioned, like a lot of them do the like red, not always blood, but like, you know, red flash to the left. And that means you're getting hit from the left or whatever. Some games go super video gamey with it. And there's just literally an arrow like pointing like, oh, they're over there. And it's like, don't do that. Like that's the immersion
breaking.
and just like the Doom guy, like looking may be a little more subtle than you might want, but the arrow is definitely way too on the nose, right? Like, and especially when you're going for this like semi-realism of like, yeah, they're demons, but you know, they're made out of meat. And so like they still go down with guns, right? Like I always think of that line from Reign of Fire, where he's like, you know, they're made of, you know, a brain, heart, and liver. Take one of these out and you bring down the beast. Like it's, there are rules of the Doom universe, and they communicate that to you through a lot of normalcy, right? Like when he's bleeding, he's hurt, right? And yeah, there's a percentage in the HUD, but like the main way you get it is like, you don't look so good.
Yeah. I mean, and again, like that quick visual, like you can just quickly look at Doom Guy and be like, oh, I am hurting. You don't have to, it's just a quick visual as opposed to like seeing a number and then having to do the mental calculus of like, how much health do I have left? Especially because it's on kind of like 25, so sorry, real fast. One thing that you said where it was the like, you know, take the brain, the heart, or whatever, you kill the beast. One of my other favorite ones is from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where it's like an alternate universe, and Giles and Buffy don't know each other very well. So Giles says to Buffy, like, oh, there's a demon that's doing thing A, thing B, thing C. And she goes, like, got it. And she starts to walk away. It's like, don't you want to know more about it? And she's like, I'm going to put a stake through its heart. He goes like, but it's not a vampire. Be surprised at how many things that'll kill.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
True story.
Same thing. Yeah. But all that being said is that the Doom guy's face is in 25% increments, right? So 100% to 25% is looking good. 75% to 50% is kind of looking around a little bit. I think it may be a little bit off. I think maybe it's around 60% is when you go to kind of like haggard, red-eyed, you know, and then around 30% is where, you know, you go to bloody nose, kind of looking around, and then around 10 to 15% is when you're like completely bleeding from the head. But yeah, so basically though, that correlates to health pickups, right? Because a health pickup is a big one, is 25% of your health, right? So you can just quickly say like, oh, I am bleeding from every orifice that I know. I need 3 health pickups, you know, or, hey, I've just got a little bit of a nosebleed. I probably don't need to pick. And again, like if you have no visual discernment whatsoever, it's like, then I don't need to touch that health pickup at all. I may need it later, you know, like I don't need to constantly be checking the number. I can just look at like quickly out of my periphery, look at Doom Guy's face and say, yeah, I am looking fine. I don't need to pick up that med kit because it would be wasteful, you know, or at least that's one of the things I was doing. So.
Well, and a place that it doesn't exactly fall down, but hits its limits might be a better way to describe it is, and I don't want to go too much into the mechanics of this. I want to talk about the HUD visually, which is the HUD displays to the left of Doom Guy's face is your health percentage, and to the right of Doom Guy's face is your armor percentage. And this universe has meta packs and stim packs which restore your health, and then they have little blue potions which are health bonuses, and a health bonus will put you above and beyond 100% all the way up to 200%, right? But logically, 100% is the most any one Doom guy can give. But it's his face doesn't, like, once you're feeling fine, right? You don't look any different from that point. So if you have, you know, say 90% or 100% or 110 or 199% health, all of those visually look the same. And I think like if there were too many visual gradations, that system would fall down. And so they kind of have to fall back to, we're going to just literally put your health on screen because we've chosen to give you this ability to go up to 200%. And so when you're looking around the world, if you check that little percentage and you see like, oh, there's a stim pack over there, but I'm at 99%, I'm not going to bother with it. But a health bonus is always worth picking up because unless you have 200%, you can always use a health bonus, right? So there's like this weird fight between the video game needs to give you video gamey information, and they do that with a percentage, and that's fine. And then also they clearly thought a lot about how to communicate this information visually, but that system doesn't expand to fill all of the mechanics they wanted to play with.
Well, so to me, the normal looking Doom guy face is don't worry about it, you know?
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, it's like if you're over 100% health, it's not like you don't need to be worried about your health. Like you can get to a point very quickly that you do need to be worried about your health. But, you know, like you shouldn't be at that point scavenging for health. And like you said, there's a lot of mechanics to get into on, you know, health pickups versus health bonuses versus med packs versus stim packs. Although one thing I do want to mention real fast is that I don't know whether this game like was the first, but this game was certainly, I think, one of the big ones that set the standard for stim pack as a health bonus, right? Because it wasn't until way later, because I was like, oh yeah, stim pack, that gives you health. A stim pack gives you health, right? But like it wasn't until way later, and I think it was Fallout that actually caused me to reflect upon this, where it's like a stim is a stimulant, you know? So the idea is that you're not feeling better. It's not healing you. It's just making you ignore the injury. So
yeah, drugs, not medicine.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, oh yeah, stim pack. Yeah, no, it's how it heals you. It's like a med pack, and it's like, nope, two different things. So that's funny. One thing that I did want to touch on is just because I don't think you can talk about Doom without talking about it is the faux 3D that they do with the enemies. I think that was very one is I think it was 100% the call in this game, because there is absolutely no way that the computer could chug a true 3D environment, you know, not and be the game that Doom was, with as many levels, with as much expansion as it had, as much gameplay as there was. I don't think there was any way they could reasonably have true 3D models. But the fact that you know, they had basically a profile view, a 3/4 view, a dead-on view, a dying view, like an attacking view, all of these different things. Well, it conveyed a tremendous amount of information to you, just again off of just quickly looking at it. Like if you saw the monster at a 3/4 view, then it was moving at a 45-degree angle, so you could know how to potentially lead your target, so that way you could hit them. Like one of the things that I did not remember, but I remember now, was the demons, the pink demons. They do not run directly at you, which would make them way easier to kill. They run at you on a zigzag, which makes them a huge pain in the butt. But yeah, so I mean, like, but you know, you see them at this 3/4 view. So at no point when the enemy is moving was I trying to kind of guess what their movement pattern was, unless there's two enemies that kind of do, and I think that's intentional, which is the rocket launcher demon and
the huge blob looking thing.
Ooh, you're thinking of the Mancubus. No, I was thinking of the one that's basically a skeleton with rockets on its shoulders.
Yes, yeah, I hate those things.
Yeah, because he moves around like crazy fast. And the one whose name I actually remember because of how much I hated this demon, the Archvile.
Definitely the worst, which is why the whole game has like 5 of them.
Yes. Yeah. And if you set the difficulty out, there's way more, which I think speaks to, it's like, man, I need to make this game more difficult. I don't know, man, you just throw in a couple more Archviles. It's like, yeah, that would get the job done. So anyway, so the fact that they use faux 3D, and so these are 3D sprites in a true 3D environment, I think was done very well, and especially the fact that they used exactly which sprite was being presented to you to tell you where the sprite is going makes you feel like an awesome demon slayer, even though they're really telegraphing to you like, hey, this is where this demon's going to be.
When we first started playing 3D, like actual, 3D polygon games on Nostalgia Goggles, I remember learning the phrase from a listener, or the term billboarding, right? Which is when you have a flat object that is in a 3-dimensional space, but you can't ever see it from the 0 pixels deep side, right? You can never see it side on. And I think a big part of what's happening in Doom and games of this era is it's not just how lovingly crafted the pixel art is, because it's really good, right? Like just the sheer quality of any static sprite is really high. And then they also took the time to generate the angles needed. So it's like, oh, you need to be able to see it straight on and at a 45, and then, you know, in full profile and from the back and from the back at a 45, right? Like they really spent the time to animate them, because that all had to be done by hand. It's not like you build one 3D model and then you just move the camera around it. All of those are individual drawings, but they really nailed when they essentially clip from size to size, right? Because when you're looking at an enemy at a distance and as it's coming towards you, if they don't sort of scale it at the right speed, you would be very aware that a piece of paper is slowly coming towards you. But because they scale it, which I'm sure on this early hardware was hard, but they scale it in such a way that it feels like an object with volume is moving through physical space, as opposed to a flat piece of paper is now just closer up against my eyeballs. And I'm probably doing a really piss poor job of describing that. And there's a game dev listening who's just like, what is wrong with this idiot? But like the billboarding, the quality of the billboarding is a big part of why you don't think about that they're all actually 2D sprites. They switch angle at the time that they should, and they get bigger and smaller in a way that feels very natural. And if I remember correctly, either Wolfenstein 3D or Doom, but I think it's the original Doom, almost all of this technology was invented for this game by these developers, right? It's not that they were the first ones to think about it or that they were the only ones who ever tried it, but like they basically said, to make this game look and play the way we want it to look and play, we're going to have to do things that have never really been done before. And they really nailed a lot of it, right? Because that you can imagine like, oh, suddenly the enemy's bigger and then suddenly they're bigger, and they clip up at like weird intervals, or they're sideways, even though they're not really moving sideways, they're still kind of moving at an angle, right? And that would make everything feel very like paper dolls, right? Like little kids putting on a play with like toothpicks, or not toothpicks, right, like tongue depressors with, you know, googly eyes glued onto them. It wouldn't feel believable, but they just really nailed down that, like, how do we make these two-dimensional objects feel like, or how do we make these two-dimensional pictures feel like three-dimensional objects? And then on top of that, the art itself is also excellent. So like those two things, those are two great tastes that go great together. Like it makes the visuals hold up incredibly well, like shockingly well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think that and I kind of had this in mechanics, but I think it could go as well into visuals, which is, I don't think that necessarily it's that Doom created a lot of this stuff, but they absolutely did it with a degree of polish that to this point wasn't really seen before, you know? So like somebody else may have been the first person to, you know, invent a cellular phone, but this is like the smartphone where it's like, yeah, it's done, but it's done in a way where it's just seamless, you know? So the difference between, and it was literally, this is done in such a seamless manner that it was within the last year that I found out the difference between hit scan and projectile weapons. And so the thing is that like the guns, right? Those are all hit scan weapons. So they fire bullets, but you never see the bullets. They never render the bullets. Basically, all they're doing is drawing a line from the tip of the barrel infinitely out and saying, what does this cross? You know, and if it crosses the line of a bad guy, they take damage. If it crosses the line of the object, it does the little bullet poof animation, you know, to say like you hit a thing, right? And that's it. Then there are projectile weapons that actually fire an honest to God projectile, right? And so it completely, which can then be, you can move around. So if you are leading a target and it is a hit scan weapon, you don't lead them, you shoot where the target is. If it is a projectile weapon, you have to lead the target. But all of that just feels seamless because bullets move so fast and these enemies move so slow that you don't lead them, you shoot where they are. Whereas with the rocket launcher, you absolutely lead them because the rocket launcher feels like it should be slower. Even the plasma rifle, which does shoot projectiles, those projectiles move faster, but it is clearly a projectile, so you'll lead your target, right? And I think that, and this does stray into mechanics a little bit, which is the types of enemies that use projectiles versus hit scan, like the number of enemies, first of all, the fact that the visual is very clear on which type of thing they're going to use, because cacodemons always are projectiles. They have one thing that they do. They fire projectiles, right? Whereas the zombie soldiers, they are hit scan, And so the ones that are hit scan do way less damage, because the ones that are firing projectiles, you should be able to dodge that. Like if you get hit by a projectile, it's way more egregious than somebody saw you, turned in your direction, pulled the trigger, and there was really nothing else you could do at that point. So the fact that they, even at this early age, said like, look, rendering bullets doesn't make any sense. We are just going to basically, the bullets are invisible, just kind of like they are in real life. But a rocket launcher, that doesn't make, like, you'd want to see the rocket. So let's draw that and make it into a projectile and make it fundamentally behave differently. Because otherwise, the bullets would feel slow and clunky, and the rocket launcher would feel weird. It wouldn't feel right. So the fact that they did that, I think, is pretty impressive.
Well, and a lot of the projectiles are like magic, or like hell magic, hell miracles. I don't know. Hell magic. I'm going to go with hell magic. They're hell magic.
Hell curses, right? Because miracles are heavenly, right?
That was the joke. So but like, if, one of the big, the what did you call them? The big sloppy things with they look like big blobs. They're big
mancubus.
Yeah,
it's a mancubus.
They're gross, dude. They're super gross, and they make a gross noise.
They are, but like the way you said that just really made me sound like I did not say that out loud. What did I say?
I'm saying they're sloppy. They're gross. So they're
succubi. These are mancubi.
Right.
These are men.
Yeah. There's a word for that. It's an incubus, which is why the band Incubus called themselves Incubus.
But no, this is a mancubus.
But this one goes to 11. But they fire like it looks like a magical spell of fireball, right? Even though it comes out of what looks like a rocket launcher, it's like a magical kind of spell, right? Like it is a solid fire blob that comes shooting out. And there's a lot of that, right? I think it's the cacodemons, right? It's like a big magical looking ball of plasma that comes like shooting out of their mouth. And so it makes sense mechanically that these things need to be visual so that they're dodgeable, unlike the bullets, which are hit scan. But I also think it makes a lot of sense, like in how your brain is perceiving the world visually, because it would be weird if the cacodemon had a pistol, right? Like it just wouldn't make any damn sense. Like the zombie soldiers have guns because they're soldiers and they carry guns. The terrifying demons from hell have terrifying demon from hell magic because they don't have thumbs and can't hold firearms, right? So like there's a kind of visual consistency that's happening that whether the visuals came first and then the mechanics happily followed, or the mechanics came first and the visuals happily followed, or if they grew up as neighbors, like they fit together in a way that's really logical. Like that feels stupid to say about magical hell demons, but like it wouldn't make any sense if whatever the cacodemon did instantly hit me, because that's just not how my brain perceives this floating death orb. Like I should see the thing that's hitting me come out of it and maybe have time to like do a heroic leap to the side, right? So like it somehow makes sense visually with what you expect to be seeing.
Well, and it also works with the difficulty curve as well, because like as the difficulty rises, you see more and more projectile weapons because they do way more damage. The only demon that actually uses hit scan is the Spider Mastermind, and it is terrifying because it's the
no, I remember. I'm just trying to remember which, because that's one of the few enemies that has like 2 or 3 attacks, isn't it?
No. So what you're thinking of, I think, is there are the little arachnid demons that have the plasma rifle, and then there's the mama that has the Gatling gun strapped to its belly, and it has no compunction, especially on the level gotcha, which is great. Great level name, because it did. I got in the sense I was like, oh, this is fine. I'm just going to press this button and no, it's a cyber demon and a spider mastermind. I probably got I did not have it. I don't. Not even a little. I definitely had to do some save scumming there, which is another thing that is worth talking about later. But no, it's true. Yeah. So it makes sense as far as the progression goes, right? Because the things that hit harder and harder are firing projectiles, which means that those projectiles hit harder, which feels right because they're big giant demons. And the game is getting, and as the game gets harder, you see more and more demons, especially as you are spending less and less time on the material plane and more time in the 9 hells of Bator. So as this goes on, so it makes sense from a scaling point as well. So just again, it just all feels right, which is great.
There's one thing about the visuals that I do want to make mention of, because it's more like we see you there, which is just the TLC, the polish, the high level of love and affection that went into a lot of the visuals. It's not actually present in all of them, because things that are just like generic textures, like brick or stonework or wall, some of them are like lazy almost to the point of being frustrating. But the thing is, I only noticed them under certain circumstances, and I'm going to leave all that for mechanics, because I will likely go on a long whole thing about that. But most of the time, you're not in a situation where you're just staring at the walls. And so the fact that they are not resplendent isn't really that big of a deal, and they invested all of their time and art budget into the things you should be looking at and the things that should matter. But the only place then that spills over is, generic light fixture number 3 looks completely unremarkable, but demon light fixture number 3 has the same love and care put into it as the enemies, even though it doesn't do anything. It's not interactable. It's just wall art. But it's funny that like the more mundane something is, the less they clearly cared about it, and the more like demonic and metal it is, like that's where they put all their effort. And even in something as mundane as like, oh, this is a wooden wall, this is a demon wooden wall, and it's like, oh, that one got the polish. Like that's the one they spend time on. So I get it. Like it totally makes sense. But if you are in a situation that I will probably talk about later, where you are just staring at walls for some reason, you're like, oh, this is pretty uninspired. This is some serious MS Paint quality brickwork.
First, I need more towels. Secondly, I demand more towels. And third, I demand more trowels. The brickwork in this place is a show. Yes. So all of this is true. So actually, that is my final note for visual, which is that it is, and this is probably the mechanics thing that you're talking about, which is it is not clear what doors you can and cannot open, in the sense that like there are definitely surfaces that are meant to be opened that there's just absolutely no indication that you should open them. Now, that being said, is that a lot of the time they're secrets, and that's done intentionally. Even though still a secret should have some kind of a telegraph, so that way I'm not walking around going on every single wall. That's time consuming and not really what they're hopefully going for. But there are a handful of times where absolutely you've got to, like, it's core to the game. Like you need to be able to know that this nondescript wall A is interactable, or that you have to shoot it to open it, which is also super frustrating. Because I would say the half dozen times where I needed to go online and be like, okay, what am I doing here? Like it was because it's like, oh, I needed to, this thing that looked like a door that I was trying to hit spacebar or the X in this case to open, and it wasn't opening. It's because I had to shoot it. Why would I think to do that? There was absolutely nothing that made me that made it unique to point like, oh, well, these are doors that I shoot. And then also too, there are some of them where I was like, oh, there was just no indication that was a surface that I needed to interact with in any capacity. So what the hell? So yeah, that was definitely a source of frustration for me with this game.
And they clearly thought about it, because there's I don't really know how to describe it. There is a certain kind of texture that almost every single time you see it, it indicates that if you interact with it, there'll be like an elevator, right? The floor will go up or down, right? You know what I'm talking about? The like brown and black vertical stripey thing.
Yeah.
Like that is reused a lot. And so this is something they obviously thought about, and it sounds like we're a little bit on the same page with this. So I'm going to save all that discussion for mechanics, and I'm going to use your reference to the of trying to explore the world as a nice little transition into audio.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's so yeah, that was one of the sound effects, and literally I've got under my audio notes humping the walls, you know, because like that's what it is. Like you're just going around like Now, to be fair, I am very glad that they put some kind of an audio cue to the fact that it's like, no, we acknowledge the fact that you have hit the space bar. This is not going to work, you know? Because otherwise I'd be sitting here, I'm like, am I doing it right? Is it registering? And it's saying like, no, you're doing it right. This is the wrong thing to be doing here. But then when you couple that with the fact that the way they've laid out secrets and some of the level design is such that it's kind of like it's the video Doom equivalent of burning every bush in The Legend of Zelda. Totally. You know, where it's just like, gotta burn every bush because I don't know which one has a secret. Gotta hump every wall because I don't know which one has a secret, you know? So I mean that was and again, like I would say that it was immersion breaking, but there was only a small handful of times when it caused the game to come to a grinding halt. Most of the time I was doing it because I was looking for secrets, and I was kind of breaking the immersion myself on that front, you know, where I was like, I am going to comb this level because I want 100% on the secret score. But at the same point in time, the fact that there are a handful of times where they're like, nope, hump all the walls. You got to hump all the walls. I'm like, I just wanted to get through this level. I didn't care. Yeah. So that was very frustrating.
Although I think it's interesting that you pointed out it's information that wall is not going to respond favorably to your advances, because when you try to open... When you try to open a locked door, like if you don't have the blue key, you get the noise, but it also says on the screen in literal words, you need the blue key to open this door, right? So yes. That's an important bit of additional information, because if it just made the noise, you could reasonably assume like, oh, I guess this thing can't be opened. This door can't be opened. So they have to, in some other way, they chose to go with literal text on the screen, communicate to you, no, this thing can be opened. You just can't open it right now, which is why you're getting the can't open this or interact with this noise. So like they clearly did think about that, right? What I don't love is some of the audio cues are important to exploring the level, but are delivered in a way that is the minimum amount of helpfulness. And the best example I could think of this is you go down a long hallway and you push a button or you flip a switch or you interact with a face on the wall or whatever. Yes, and you get that amazing Doom elevator, Doom door, Doom thing moved noise, right? Because those noises they're super iconic, like weirdly iconic. In fact, I've played other games where I'm like, did they steal the Doom door noise? And it's like an obvious ripoff of that sound because it's so iconic. And but knowing that happened isn't really enough information, right? I almost wish they had some standardized text that was like, a door opened far away, or you heard a door open, or you hear a door open off in the distance. And it's like, oh, off in the distance means it's really far. Far away means it's kind of far. And you hear a door open means it opened in your immediate vicinity, right? Something, right? Because they didn't have anywhere near the audio technology to say like, oh, well, we'll play this at a slightly different volume, or we'll do this, or you'll hear the direction that it's coming from in 3D audio. I get that they didn't have any of those capabilities, but some of the later levels are big, like they're really big, and hearing the enemies make noises to indicate that they are still alive or that there are still enemies around, like that's really useful, right? It tells you something about the world. Knowing that a wall opened or a door moved or an elevator came down or something, that's super useful. But a little bit more on the moving walls and the moving doors and the elevators and everything would just really help to not getting that lost feeling, because they're obviously trying to tell you. They're trying to say, oh, the world has changed. Now you can do something you couldn't do before. But it's like, go figure out what that thing was.
Well, and I think that to me, I agree with you. And I think that, though, to me, I pinned that less on audio issue and more on shaky level design, in the sense that when you open the door and you hear the noise, it is not clearly evident to you what in the world has changed. So to me, instead of saying, like a door far in the distance just opened, more so like when you first see this thing that it has to clearly be a door, which we've already said they struggle with, right? That it's got like a skull on it. And then when you go press the skull button, now, that probably opened the skull door. Or if they don't want to do any of that, then the button that you push, it has to not like literally the only way to leave this room is back the way you came. And it is going to be painfully obvious what changed. Like an entire wall has dropped down, which they do a lot, where normally behind that wall, there were many, many demons, but just something like that. So to me, it was more like, I think that the audio was where it needed to be. Again, it would be nice if they could, have stereo surround sound and be like, oh, it's coming off in the distance from the left, but like you said, that technology didn't exist. But to me, it's more of a failure on, like, the audio cue did the right thing. It fed you the information. The problem is that the level design doesn't allow you to do anything with that information other than to say, well, something changed.
Well, and this is either of our solutions would work, but they went with neither, right? They could either keep the sprawling, confusing level design and then give you a little bit more information about where, like, should I look in my immediate vicinity, the middle distance, or way off in the distance for what part of the world just changed? Like, feed that to me through text or through something, some way to get me that information, or change the way the levels are designed so that you don't have to feed me that information directly, because I will trip and fall over that information just by leaving where the place I pressed the button, right? And they didn't go with either of those. And I'm gonna say this now just as a teaser, because I've had to literally hold in this phrase. This is basically the central tenet of all the mechanical things I'll have to say, which is this game knows it's a video game and is really proud of that, right? Like, the people who made this game knew they were making a video game and we're fine with that. Like, they're fine with the video gaminess. And so the fact that they don't tell you where to go look for the change, I don't think is actually an oversight, right? So like, they could have, through level design or through, text cues or through God knows how many other design choices, communicated this button that just made this obvious elevator noise or this obvious door noise, or now you can hear demons you couldn't hear before, which means something released demons into the level. Like, you get all this audio information about what changed, and then it stops right there. And I don't think it's an accident. I just disagree with the decision.
Well, and I think that you did on is that I think that the decision was deliberate, because that type of thing of like comb the level inch by inch, pixel by pixel to figure out the thing that changed, that was pretty common back in the day, So, I mean, like, I think that they were like, this is fun, right? People like doing this. And it's like, nope, not only is it not fun, but it's counter to the, kind of action based pacing of the game, So I definitely think that this is one that did not bear out over time. Because I think that they did it on purpose, is they were just kind of like, okay, well, we gave you a lot of like action packed demon stuff. Now we need to give the player a break. And, now you can kind of go through the level and kind of see this little puzzly thing. And it's like, yeah, that's true, but you made it too hard. So now I've spent 15 minutes combing all over this level, as opposed to the 1 minute I needed to recover from this demon fight, So I think that, and again, this is way strewn into mechanics, but yeah, I do agree that the audio cue is there. The other, there's two other things I wanted to touch on with audio. One is that every every demon has its own little sound effect noise that it makes to let you know where it's there. And that is hypercritical information that is constantly being fed to you. And it's awesome. So like the little like of like that the demons that the human-esque demons make, like you're like, okay, all right, I got that. And then the little imp noise that, like you're like, okay, all right. And then there's like the Baron of Hell noise where it's just like a trumpet going off, where you're like, oh my God, like, but that's what you want, right? Because like it has gotten real now, the raspy kind of like of the Kako demon, where you're like, all right, I think I can handle that. But the ones that like really got me were the Baron of Hell that made that huge trumpet noise, and even though it's not a particularly visceral noise, but the that whoop that the Mancubus makes, like I was like, oh God, like because they will eat your lunch if you let them get away from you.
Learn to fear that noise, right? Because your brain is like, the first time is like, oh, that's a weird sound. And then like any good, animal that wants to survive, your brain eventually associates that sound with dying over and over. And you're like, oh, what that sound means is I'm about to get my lunch at, right? So the sound becomes terrifying. It doesn't start out terrifying. It's a little like unnerving and otherworldly, but it becomes terrifying.
Yes. Yeah. So, I mean, the fact that literally, because I remember that, there's just like an imp sound, and this, and so I remembered that like some of the demons had their own sound effects, but I didn't remember that all of them do. And again, when you're walking around at like 13% health and all of a sudden you hear like one of the enemy noises, you can like literally, there have been times where I paused and then went back into the level to like look for some more health because I'm like, I'm not in a position to handle this problem right now, So I mean, it's hypercritical that they give you that. And so one other thing I do want to say actually about the music, which is that so the music is actually very relaxed, right, and very flowy.
At first,
which is not what you. But even when it gets like more intense, the pace of the music isn't like it's not like 200 beats per minute or anything like that. It is very, even though the music is intense, the tempo of it flows. So I actually happened upon this information when I was watching a video about Doom 2016's music design that I think bears on this, which is that when the guy was originally doing the music design for this, he originally did it as like super turbo rock. And the problem is that when your brain is trying to this is a good segue. So when you're this game does a good job of like managing cognitive load in the sense that they're like, okay, we're going to ramp up but you're doing constant calculations per second of like, I got to move here and then do this and then do that. It's like, it's all very small decisions, but they're very quick decisions that you're making, and they're giving you space in which to do that. If while that's happening, 200 beats per minute of like drum slamming audio is ripping through your ears at the same time, it's not intense, it's annoying. It actually makes you hate the game because you're like, I can't think over this insane amount of audio noise that's being thrown at me at the same time. It's disruptive. So actually the pacing of the music is very slow paced. The music can be intense, but the actual amount of mental bandwidth it's taking is super low, and that is deliberate. And I think that is fascinating.
So I'm really glad to hear you say that, because the way I came to this was you went into the jungle with a zoologist who was able to explain to you why the animal looked and behaved a certain way. And I just went in and went, ha, that one looks funny. because what happened is, so the version I played like an honest to God MS-DOS, like original Doom 2, right? Like what I would have played as a kid, because there's a billion versions. And again, we'll get to that. But, for whatever reason, the version I was playing, the music volume was set super low. So it was set to like 50% of the sound effects volume. And so I would turn it up to hear the music. And then I was like, oh God, the sound effects are so loud. And then I don't know why. I was like, wait, I could probably change that. And so then I went and rebalanced it. But before I did that, I just looked up the soundtrack on YouTube. And so I'm now totally separate from any other visual, any other audio information, any sensory information I have to process or do anything. I'm just listening to the music. And I was like, why is it like elevator jazz? Like, especially in the first episode, because the music essentially amps up a little bit at each episode crossing, like right before and then right after the new episode. And so I was like, this is like not just calm, but like calming, right? It's not just slow music. It's like not intense. And it, even by the end, like you said, it doesn't ever get super like heavy metal, right? And you would expect it based on the visuals. You'd be like, oh, any minute the guitars and the double bass pedal on the drum set is going to come in, and it never does. It never gets there. And when you're playing the game, it all feels great. And I didn't understand why, but it feels totally fine. Where you notice that it's not totally fine is if you kill all the demons and you don't know which wall to hump and you're lost, and now there's no demons making their very useful demon sounds and there's no gunfire covering up the music, that is when in the game, the music, like you see the man behind the curtain, right? During gameplay, that music is apparently very intentionally chosen, and that's amazing. When you're not playing the game, but you are trying to play the game and you're lost, that's where the music fell down for me. And I was just like, oh, I'm really aware that I'm in this stuck elevator and they haven't turned off the music yet. Right. So there's like this weird kind of like some of the visuals where a projectile weapon flying at you, it's really useful that you can hear like the imp demons, the little like whoosh noise that their little fireballs make, because if they're behind you and you hear that noise, you may strafe out of the way and feel super cool for it. But the Mancubus, their little fireball has a tail, but they didn't do 8 different versions of that animation. And so if you jump out of the way of that, but you're still sort of looking at it, you might see it awkwardly snap from like front on to profile because they just didn't bother to do the extra frames of animation. And so like, again, you see the man behind the curtain, you're like, oh, that's not a 3-dimensional object at all, but you're being shot at, so you don't have to dwell on it for very long before you have to like go do other things. But if you get lost, you might hear that music for a long time, right? And then you open, Reddit or GameFAQs or whatever to go look it up, and it's like now the music's playing in the background, continually mocking you while you're trying to figure out which wall to hump. And it's like, so that I actually really enjoy this music, and now I'm even more fascinated by it. But I was surprised, like, how much it falls down when there isn't the rest of the game happening.
Yes, no, it is definitely like it's almost like Muzak. So sorry, we've said it now. That's basically all I have audio, but the last kind of note I'll put on that is because we keep saying like, oh yeah, you had to, you hump the wall, right? I just realized what that makes me think of, which is it's Rick and Morty, the one with Fruity Land, where it's like I have killed all of the demons and I do not know which door to open next, and all I can do is hump. I will hump this wall. I will hump this demon corpse. I will hump this exit sign and put my seed in it. That's exactly the feeling where you're just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just gonna hump everything and then just see what happens.
I don't have the time or skills to put Doom Guy's face into that scene, but if somebody wants to do that, I will figure out some way to reward you.
But mechanics?
Yeah, upward and onward to and I already said it, but I need to reiterate, this game came out from people at a time in history and on subject matter where the video gaminess of it is not a drawback, right? And that ripples out across everything. All of the decisions they made, you have to be aware of the fact as the player that they know it's a video game, they know it's a video game, and they're like happy about that, right? Like they're super jazzed about it. And the place where I think that has the most negative side effects is in the level design, which in my notes I have literally called troll level design, because there's a lot of places where you do just have to hump a nondescript wall, or you do have to shoot something that every other time you've interacted with it, you had to use the interaction button, not the gunfire button. And even that, they go extra far to screw with you because some guns won't trigger those things. You have to use hit scan guns. You can't use projectile guns. So it's like, there's so many things where every time I humped the right wall and then the thing moved and I was just like, I could practically hear John Romero go, like it just, you can feel his desire to troll generation after generation after generation of gamer with every smirking, smarmy, crappy design choice, because they're there on purpose. They're there because it's a funny video game thing to hide beating the level behind a wall. It's a funny video game thing to make the exit from this one level look like lava. And it's like, oh, we're going to make the player step into lava because that's literally the only way to get out of the level, right? Like there's just so much of that. And honestly, by about midway through episode 2, I was like, I'm getting a little tired of the developers trolling me from 30 years ago.
Yeah, no, I mean, definitely they do that. And so the version that I played was the version made for PS4, which had probably several small, but like two main differences. One of them was the controls, which but you get to next. But the other one was that, and it took me longer than I'd like to admit as somebody who reviews video games to realize that they made this change, but they definitely realized, some of the things that did not age well. So they made very, very, very few changes. But one of the changes that they made was that when you interact with a wall, that you can shoot, but you can't interact with the interact button. The PlayStation controller rumbles a little bit. So yeah. So they again, like it's still subtle. So like you've got to be paying attention, but there is something that tells you, no, you're not done here. So like when you're going through and humping every wall, so you're still getting that part of the gameplay, right? The all I can do is hump. So you're still going through and doing all of that, right? But then when all of a sudden it gives you a little bit of a goose, you're like, okay. So then like you shoot the wall and then all of a sudden it opens and you can go through it. So again, so it's like, even the people who are porting the game, they're like, yeah, this part wasn't very fun. Let's do something about it. And then the other big thing was the fact that, when I was playing it, I was using a dual analog stick, and you were using the original controls. How was that?
Yeah, so let's talk about the controls. The original controls are... we're about to go on like a real journey. Like, do you have snacks and water? Have you gone to the bathroom? Because like a whole thing is about to happen. So
hang on. Then in that case, if you're going to do like a whole thing, let me go ahead and save my game, and I'm gonna go to the clear spot. So I'm just gonna see how so far in the conversation what percentages I've gotten on like bonuses for observations, for visuals, audio, and then gameplay. So give me one quick second. All right. 100% on kills, 100% on items, and only 50% on secrets. I mean, it took me 15 minutes and the par time was 30 seconds, but I'll take it.
I decided, because you were the one who suggested this game, and I was like, ooh, Doom 2, rock on. And I decided I was going to play the OG, right? The original emulated in DOSBox, right? The whole sad thing. And the controls are so dated that I had to look them up. Like I had to open the options and be like, what buttons do what? Because the buttons that I thought would do things don't do things. And some of the buttons that I thought would do things do unexpected things. And so I actually had to go into the options and literally read the list and be like, okay, this button does this key does that, this thing over here does this, but I'm not sure when I'll ever need to do that, but it's listed here, so I guess I need to internalize this, right? There's they're really bad. And they're placed in a place on the keyboard that makes it, because I have a wrist rest on my keyboard, that makes it impossible to sit with your hands comfortably. You end up with these weird claws on the bottom of,
like the Pac-Man claw.
Yeah, really not good. And I decided, I was like, okay, I'm like, this is what I'm here for. Like, this must be how I played this as a kid, because I wouldn't have had any way to do anything different at that time. So I'm gonna just suck it up. Well, the truth is, I made it about an hour like that before the back of my left hand started to hurt so bad that I was like, okay, I now have all the information I needed about the original controls, which is they're game breaking. I literally cannot play the game. I can feel the RSI settling into my tendons. So I stopped that because I was like, I'm not willing to cripple myself to give an honest review of this game. And
coward.
Well, I stand by my choices. Live to game another day. So what this turned into is now I needed to find a version of the game that had more modern controls, because I still wanted to play it on my PC. So I didn't want to get the PS4 version, right? I wanted PC controls. Even if they were modern PC controls, I still wanted PC controls. And this is where I learned about the unbelievably vibrant Doom modding community. So there is not just a version or a couple of versions of Doom that have been modded to be more modern. There are like several dozen. And
the vast panoply.
Yeah, just an unbelievably generous outpouring of, because I mean, they're all free, right? None of this costs any money. Anyone can just get the original code for the game, because that has actually been released for free. And then you can get one of these custom engines, because they don't have the right to distribute the game, but they can make an engine that will play the game, right? And then you get things like Mouse Look, where the mouse does modern shooter things, and where the controls are where you expect them to be on the keyboard, not shoved down in the bottom left corner for seemingly no reason, right? And where the frame rate has been unlocked, and so it will play at modern frame rates, because the original frame rate is actually, it's not unplayable, but it's choppy, right? And that's like on the PS4 version, you were surely playing with a modern frame rate, which isn't it doesn't make all of the graphics magically better, but it does make them easier to digest, right? And so essentially what I will say about the controls is they are unusable. Like, nothing about the controls has survived even beyond just this game. Other games that use the Doom engine use more modern controls, like Heretic or Hexen or whatever. Like, even games that were still using this same technology were like, whoops, that none of that was a good idea, right? So if you're going to play Doom 2, and we'll get to our judgments of the game, but like, if you are going to play Doom 2, I'm going to actually put in the show notes a list of all of the different versions and what's different about their versions. And I recommend one called Doom Retro, because literally all they did was unlock the frame rate and give you modern controls. And so however you remember this game, fondly or not, that version will play more like you think you remember it. And then you can either have a good time or have a bad time, right? But all of the other versions are like particle effects and rock music and more monsters or more different weapons, changed graphics and all this other stuff. And like, that's fine if that's what you want. Super generous modding community will let you hump walls in whatever resolution you're into. But if you want something as close to the retro experience as possible without feeling like your hands are going to be permanently gnarled claws, Doom Retro is the one that I got the most bang for my buck out of, which was $0. So it's like an infinity ratio of bang to buck. Yeah, the controls are just bad. They're unusable. But what was it like to play this with sticks? Because to me, this is a quintessentially PC game. I've never played any of the modern Dooms. So when you were like, oh, I'm going to play it on PS4, I was like, with the controller?
Like, how? Really well. So yeah, so to your point, like, yes, the controls are fundamentally broken. I mean, basically the way I kind of look at it is it's kind of like saying, oh, well, if I want to play this game, I've got to play it with the original code. on the original software. It's like, yeah, but there's no computer anywhere anymore that runs Windows 95. If you try to take Windows 95 version and dump it onto any modern software, it is just going to break immediately. You can't play it. This is the exact equivalent of that, except that the modern hardware is your brain. And so, like literally you have now upgraded to decades of proper first-person shooter controls. So your brain software is not backwards compatible to this. It just isn't. It's just so it's like if you want to play this game in any capacity, you have to use modern controls. Like don't and to be fair, this game is popular enough that it's like you almost have to go out of your way to do it wrong. Where it's like if you want to play the true OG original Doom, you kind of have to hunt for it because everybody was like, "Ooh, no, that's bad. Why would you do that to yourself?" So actually playing with the analog sticks worked really well. The one thing that is odd is that, and I've got it in my note, is that there's no Y-axis.
Some of the modern versions of the game will let you do full mouse look where you can do, because on the keyboard you actually can look up and down, and I guarantee you that there's some janky button combination on the PS4 controller that would let you look up and down. It's page up and page down on a keyboard, right? Because that made sense in 1994, but like now if you're playing on a PC, you expect to be able to just move the mouse. With dual analog sticks, if I move the stick up or down and I don't get that response, it would feel appropriate in Doom and broken in everything else.
It honestly took me maybe, I don't know, 2 minutes to like just suddenly adapt to that, because I remembered that there's aim assist in the sense that like if you are on the correct X-axis, it doesn't matter where on the Y-axis it is. It's the projectiles will auto aim. And that actually brings me to answer your question, it worked surprisingly well because my brain just immediately said, no Y-axis, got it. And then just moved on with life. The fact that there is no Y-axis does two things. One is there is fairly generous aim assist in this game, which I kind of liked because definitely, I'm sure that there's some people like, oh, there's so much aim assist, it makes it way easier. It's like, And if you want a more challenging experience, play it on Nightmare because the game straight up tells you it's not fair, and it's not. Because I definitely tried it on Nightmare and Ultraviolence, and I got farther than I would have thought I would on Ultraviolence. I got through the first half of the first level on Nightmare because it's straight up not fair. So it does make the game easier. So when everything is getting really weird and really frantic, the fact that the game will kind of assist you makes it feel more fair, like, more right. So when you miss, you really missed. Here's the weird thing is there is, honest to God, no Y-axis in this game, which is weird when you are standing on the edge of a cliff and there is an imp 50 feet below you who is hitting the crap out of you, right? Because that is a thing that can happen because you are just in the exact same, X-axis as it. It doesn't matter that you're 5 stories up. It is still preventing you from getting off of the platform because as far as the game is concerned, it is right in front of you and hitting you. That was a weird experience.
So I remembered that was a thing that happened because, and I was planning to save this for the end, but this is as good a time as any to mention it. There was a book called Masters of Doom that I read a number of years ago just because it looked interesting. And I highly recommend it to anyone because it's just an interesting book. But if you care at all about video games or, early PC games or John Romero's career or how this game impacted it, like any of these would be really good reasons to read this book because it's all about the technology that went into it and their culture and how they were, kind of these goofy guys just wanting to make this crazy over the top video game. And one of the things that I've seen, and I don't have a link for this, I apologize. Link for the modding community and for Masters of Doom actually are in the show notes, but I don't have a link for this YouTube video. I tried to find it, I just couldn't find it. Where they explain that the reason there is no Y-axis is not a design choice. There literally isn't. And every time you think you're going up, the world is actually just being rendered to look that way. Like technically everything is happening at the 0 on the Y-axis. It's just when you're going up, the world is animated in such a way that it appears that you're going up. When you're going down, the world is animated in such a way that it appears you're going down. But for the purposes of enemies existing in the world, it's a binary. Either they're on the same plane as you or they're not, and that's it. And the places that this is most obvious in the game is in some of the episode 2 levels where you're in like these large buildings, like because you're looking for the portal to hell. Sometimes you can see an imp way off, like up in a window. And the reason they're up in that window is because they can like shoot their little fireball down at you. But they're not shooting it down at you. They're shooting it in a straight line, and it is being animated to appear to be coming down to you because technically you are on the same level as them. But sometimes that logic breaks and you fire your gun and it shoots straight into the wall in front of you. But they're shooting fireballs apparently down at you at an angle. And so in these very specific levels, in these circumstances, especially on easier difficulties, if you can just stand there and take damage and try to shoot them, you can eventually figure out like, if I'm at this distance, the game logic has decided we are not on the same axis. And if I'm at this distance, then it will allow me to shoot them. And it's one of those things that like, yeah, when you see behind the curtain, you're like, weird. But it's because this is so... For the time, this was such advanced technology that they just literally had no way to make the game they wanted to make and build in this 3-dimensional logic. So everything is happening on a 2D plane. Everything in this game is happening. Like, did you open the map at all in the PS4 version?
Yeah.
Is it still like the super thin colored lines? Yeah. That is the way the game engine sees the game. Everything is actually happening on that 2D plane. And it's technologically, it's super fascinating. And what's actually most impressive about it is how seldom it interferes with gameplay.
Yeah, how seldom you see behind that curtain. You can count on one hand the number of times that, I was like, that's weird. I couldn't shoot a guy or I couldn't do whatever, like it breaks considering how much of an illusion they're pulling off, that all of it's happening in 2 dimensions, like the scope of that, just kind of like be if somebody said, yeah, you're jacked into a matrix, right? And be like, wow, this must be an incredibly advanced civilization. No, it's somebody playing Animal Crossing actually. And you're like, wait, my entire consciousness is being streamed on Animal Crossing right now. It's like, yeah. And it took me 35 years to realize it. That's pretty I mean, like, I'm not even mad, like,
yeah, no, that it is. And this happens. It happens. We talked about it with the visuals. We talked about it with the audio. Now we're talking about it with the mechanics. It's like the sheer trick that they're essentially pulling off is just staggering, which is why, like, I really like, no matter how you feel about this game, if you care at all about games in general, Masters of Doom is just a super, super interesting read. And if you're the kind of person who likes audiobooks, the audiobook is read by Will Wheaton, which makes it doubly nerdy.
Nice. Will Wheaton's a pretty nice guy. So what's our time at? I want to be respectful of people's time, but I got like I kind of want to do a lightning round of.
We're just getting started. We got all night.
Sweet. So everybody's just gonna hang with us. Okay, so one of the big things that this game does that has fallen out of vogue recently, but is starting to come back, which is that you got health. Not a lot of first-person shooters do that anymore. Most of them do you get hit and the screen turns a little red, and as the screen gets redder and redder, you are closer and closer to death. And then when it gets ultimately red, you die. Which is to say that in many modern games, it is a matter of how many hits you can take in X amount of time versus having an ultimate amount of health. Game designers do that generally because the idea is it's really easier to design around, because any area you're walking into, the game designer knows you're at full health, basically. So the game it is reasonable for the game designer to say, like, if you get hit more than X time in Y, more than X times in Y time, you are playing the game too poorly. Try again, right? Now, in Doom, on the other hand, you could walk into an area, and if you're at 13% health, that is a completely different experience than if you're at 200% health. You can absolutely save scum your way into a corner, and then just be like, well, I'm screwed now because literally 13% health is not enough health for me to get past this area. But what that does do, however, is encourage exploration, which is absolutely something that they wanted to do, because there's plenty of health items scattered around the level. You got to go find them, So if you just continually plow forward, if you're good enough, then yeah, you can get away with that. But if you take a lot of hits, then you're going to stop for a minute and be like, all right, I need to go back through this level and really overturn everything to see if I can find those stim packs that I need, because I'm at like 25% health. So I've got to go back and explore. And in a game where exploring the level is absolutely something they want you to do, I don't think that there was another choice at the time, because the other thing I described hadn't really come into play yet. But this, if the game was made today, which it is in Doom Eternal and Doom 2016, this mechanic should be kept, and it was. So that portion of it is still a good idea and a good decision.
Well, and I do want to specifically note save scumming, because one advantage of playing this on a PC is there's something, especially because I have a big RGB mechanical keyboard that's like super elite gamer, right? And it's really satisfying to hit escape, enter on save game, go to the game you want to save over with the arrow keys, and then hit enter and then escape again and be like right back in the action. Like, it's the kind of hand positions you have to do saving are unique to saving, right? You don't really press those buttons in any other capacity when you're playing the game. They're menu buttons, right? And so there's just something really tactilely satisfying about saving like in the thick of combat. And what I ended up with was something that just made my nostalgia meters burst at the top like a Looney Tunes cartoon, which is I had I had a couple different saves going simultaneously on different difficulties. But on any of them, say like on normal, right? I had normal, which meant I was at the start of a level, and like I could load that save at any time. Then I had normal 2, which meant I was in a level, but I was pretty confident that my position was defensible. I either had a lot of health or a lot of ammunition or whatever, but like I could also load that save in whatever my current level was, and that would be safe. Then I had normal 3. Normal 3.
Don't want normal 3.
Yeah, normal 3 was I'm not highly confident that I can get out of the corner I've painted myself into, but I'm at least willing to try, right? And what's really satisfying is when you think you've painted yourself into a corner and you load your normal 3 save and you go through and you fight yourself out. And then because you were so good at what your job is and you got a bunch of health and armor, then when you save, you don't save over normal 3, you save over normal 2. And you're like, I actually upgraded my situation in like a permanent fixture way that I can see like this little, trophy to my success in that last otherwise garbage encounter. And it's just like doing that on a keyboard felt really, really satisfying.
So I had a similar system in the sense that on the PlayStation version, you pause the game and you could just hit R1 to quick save and L1 to quick load, right? So those were I'm pretty confident I've got this. If I was like, ooh, I don't know, I'd actually legitimately save the file. So I would legitimately save it when I would, quit for the night, just because I didn't really trust quick save enough, like I should, but I don't know, paranoia. Especially because, and just one thing worth noting about this game is that if you die, you can absolutely restart the level with just the pistol. And that's super not enough in some cases. Like I literally do not know on the level gotcha, like how that would even be possible if you didn't go in with just some kind of ammunition. But anyway,
no, it genuinely seems like saving well is a feature of the game that they expect you, just like they expect you to know how to fire your gun, they expect you to know how to save tactically for your skill level as a player. And it's because the PC version also has quick save built in, but just because the menus are super fast to navigate and the saving is super fast, right, to write to disk is I just never bothered with quick save, but it's the same kind of idea where it's just like I can't let the game universe restart me at the beginning of this level with just the pistol. That is the same as starting the game over.
Yes. So it definitely, like you said, I think that save scumming is expected. It is a core mechanic. If you go into this game expecting it to work like a lot of modern games where it just saves for you at some points, it will not. And you need to be very careful about how you go about saving, because there's definitely some areas where like, I got through this, but so the phrase Pyrrhic victory is thrown away all too much these days, you know? But yeah, I mean, like, there's definitely, this game is great at Pyrrhic victories where you're like, yeah, like I got through it, but I am still dead, you know, because I am now at the end of the level, and the next level, like, I can't start another level like this. So that is 100% a thing. So I do want to touch on medkits. So medkits versus the bonus health, right? That is from my point of view, ingenious catch-up mechanic, right? Because here's the thing: is that what do they want to design? They want to design a game where you're kind of on the edge of your seat, right? So how do you do that? Well, you can get up to 200% health, but if you get up to 200% health, 90% of the things that heal you do not heal you anymore, right? So because they're very careful about how they use bonus health, and most of them are in like 1% increments. You know, like, it's very rare to find the supercharge and the mega sphere.
Good job.
You know,
good memory.
I'm actually disproportionately proud of myself. But yeah, so I mean, those two things are really rare, you know. So typically, like, you know, if I got one of those items, I would be very careful about like how much damage I took, because I'm like, oh, well, I went from 200% damage to like 150% health, which is fine, but I have no way to recover that 50%. There's med kits abound. I can't recover that. So what that means, though, is that you're way more likely to be operating in the, you know, 80% to 30% health range, you know, which is great, because that's where they want you operating. Because if you just had that greater range of 200%, you could get health packs that brought you all the way up to 200%. It would be a lot harder to design around that, because it's like, I have no idea what this guy's coming into it with. But in this case, it's like, well, they're coming in somewhere between 0 and 100%. So if I throw 2 health packs in here, I can tell you that they are somewhere between 50 to 100% health. That is where we're starting. Now I can design around that, you know, because they're probably not too much above 100%, because after the disaster that they just went through, they're probably not. And if they are, then fine. But, you know, I've probably been able to whittle them down to the point where they're not really that much over 100%. So these medkits will bring them back to 100%. And now we've got the design game. So I never would have recognized that as a kid. But the fact that those are two decidedly different things is pretty impressive.
Well, I think
pretty good game.
I think as an adult, or as someone with like a higher games literacy, this is a place where you are very much seeing behind the curtain. Like, you're super aware of what health you can pick up and what armor you can pick up and what health you can't and what armor you can't, because of this like 100% is kind of like it's like 7 on the pH scale. It's like, yeah, only certain things are going to make you go up above that, right? But lots of things will get you up to it, but then only certain things are going to make you go up above it. And so you sort of need to plan around that. And that's a super video gamey thing. That is literally, the health packs are like boring little white boxes with the you know, the red plus on them. And the bonus health is like this glowing blue potion, right? So even visually, they're like, hey, these things are different. I think they even make a different noise when you pick them up, but that one I'm not positive about. But that's a video gamey thing where they wear its video gaminess like pretty proudly. And I think it's okay that they're like, hey, this is like, these things are different. Think about that and decide how you're going to live in the world where these things are different. One of the things that jumped out at me as being really a subtle and incredibly sophisticated design choice is enemies experience knockback and friendly fire exists. So when they throw a mob of low-level enemies at you, part of you is like, oh God, they're going to overwhelm me. But then the ones in the back start firing, and because, as we discussed, everything is happening on a two-dimensional plane, they start murdering each other. And sometimes they even turn on each other. And then every once in a while, you end up in a situation where there's like 2 cacodemons or 2 mancubuses or something that, if left unchecked, will eat your lunch. But because they experience knockback that will prevent them from attacking, you can, if you are really good, actually juggle them, where you knock this one back and then you pivot to the other one, and then you pivot back and you pivot back and you pivot back. And if you're really good with the controls, you can actually keep them essentially stun locked forever until they die. And that's something that is, even today, fairly uncommon. Enemies usually do not have much recoil or knockback. Friendly fire often doesn't exist at all, where enemies can just mob you and overwhelm you because they can layer on top of each other. And it sucks. Like, it's not a fun experience when it's like, oh, they physically don't exist for each other, but for me, they all exist, right? And to have such an early game decide, not only are we going to make them respond when they get shot, because, hey, they got shot, why wouldn't they respond? But then to also say, and if they shoot each other, they'll die eventually, and they will respond as if they've been shot. Like, that's, I don't know why, but for some reason that just jumps out at me as being incredibly generous to the player, but also thinking for way forward in time about, like, what would make this game feel so real, right? This game about hunting demons feels so real that even 30 years later, the inclusion of this design choice will feel like the obvious right design choice.
Well, and I think that you hit the nail on the head, which is that what it does is, first of all, the game is ruthlessly predictable in the sense that, like, enemies can and will shoot each other. And when shot, the enemy will turn around. Like, it will, if it sees you, it's going to come for you. But if it gets shot and it doesn't have a lock onto you, it'll just turn around and start murdering somebody else, which means that all of that stuff that the player can plan around, right? And so that then, so like, it's like, oh, well, I've got the super shotgun. Why in the world would I ever use the normal shotgun? It's like, well, because the super shotgun takes up twice as much ammunition and it has a wider spread. So if you want to deal more damage in a tighter line, you need to use the normal shotgun. If you want to be more able to stun lock a bad guy, you got to use the chain gun. That's what the chain gun's for. So there were definitely enemies where I was just kind of like, oh God, especially when I was just suddenly hit and panicked, I would switch to the chain gun because they can't, especially if they've got, a projectile type weapon, a lot of times they can't wind up and fire that. With that and the plasma rifle, they can't hit you, if you've just got the one. So yeah, if you got 3 or 4 of them and you can line them out so that way bad guy A is behind bad guy B, so you're only fighting them one at a time, then you can absolutely just hold down your plasma rifle and then just murder house them. And on top of that, you can kind of get a feel for how many shots it takes. So literally I would like hold down the plasma rifle and then be like, and about now, and then just release the trigger and then they would die, So yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm glad that you touched on that because, juggling the enemies, all of that is to me what makes some of the higher level difficulties possible. So the thing is that, if you say like, well, how many enemies are there on normal versus ultra violence, right? And it's like there's twice as many enemies. You're like, well, that would be impossible. It's like kinda, but they kind of fight each other a little bit. So the one fun thing with that is literally when you go into a room and they all start fighting each other and you're like, yeah, kill each other. Yeah, that's, oh crap, they saw me. And then like, because one of them sees you, so you then shoot them. So now they all turned around and you're like, oh crap, like that. So now all of a sudden you're juggling that while trying to keep them all fighting each other to a degree and trying to cycle through your weapons based not off of which one deals the most damage, but on which one's the right tool for the job. So all of that is just remarkable, like you said, in the game of this era. The one other thing so just one minor thing and one minor and one major arcana. The minor thing is they do give you a score at the end of each level, which I kind of like because it definitely, again, if exploration's a thing that they want you doing, the fact they're like, you only got 50% of the secrets, like that was kind of cool. On nightmare difficulty, you can get more than 200% kills, which
that's because on
the enemies respawn
endlessly.
Yes.
And only on that difficulty. Every other difficulty has a set amount of enemies that are specifically placed, and only on Nightmare do they spawn endlessly.
Right. So yeah, it was just funny because I was like, I'm going to try it on Nightmare. And I got through the first level. I'm like, yeah, this isn't for me. But then it was like kills 230%. I was like, oh, something's up. And then that's when I looked at it. I'm like, oh, okay. Because they were respawning. Because at one point I'm like, how many bodies are there? You know, I mean, like, I am literally just only using the blood-soaked ammunition of the enemies that I've killed to get through this. I have not found any ammunition about the stage. I am only using clips I have pulled off of zombies' bodies, which actually brings me to the other point I want to talk about, which is the fact that there's two ways to get supplies. Now, health is health, right? But as far as ammunition goes, there's ammunition in, like, there's stuff strewn about the level, right? But also, some bad guys drop ammunition and some do not. The demons don't, humans do, right? So that's fascinating to me because that basically changes kind of that informs enemy placement, you know, because they're like, if you'll notice, even at the final level, you'll still see shotgun dudes, you know, like they're low level enemies. What are they even doing out there? It's like, because you need ammunition and they don't want it to always be a box of shotgun shells. You know, like, okay, well, you got here. So then all of a sudden I started running the ROI calculation on baddies, right? Because I'm like, okay, well, when I kill this guy, he drops a shotgun, which gives me 4 rounds, which means that if I kill him, I net 3 rounds. But so there's 5 of those in there, which means that I can technically net positive 15 rounds, but it takes me 3 rounds to kill, you know, like, or it takes me 2 shots generally to kill the pink demons and 1 shot to kill an imp. Well, so now there's this many enemies in here. So that means my best case scenario, I'm going to net negative 4 rounds of ammo. So that's not good. I need to find out another solution because I've only got 3 rounds. I do not have enough shotgun shells to get through this area. Now, is everyone doing that calculus? Probably not, but it's there and that's cool.
Well, and like I said, I haven't played the modern Doom games, but the modern Doom games apparently decided that violence is the primary way you should recover resources. And I think, in fact, in Doom Eternal, it's maybe even the only way to get resources, or the overwhelmingly primary way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it dwarfs. I mean, like in every way possible. I mean, honestly, from my own seat, like Doom Eternal is fine, but it is. It is closer to a resource management game than it is to like a Doom game. I think that they're kind of starting to push that boundary to a point where it's like, literally you're saying like, okay, I'm low on this, so I need to kill this guy this way to get them to drop this stuff. And now I'm low on this other resource, you know? So,
yeah, but you can see the seeds of that idea where they were like, yes. Oh, what if sometimes the ability to kill more enemies was locked behind efficiently killing these enemies, right? And that's like any mechanic, you can go too far, but it's interesting to see the seeds of that going all the way back to the beginning. I have one other thing that I wanted to make sure I specifically call out, and then I think I'm good, which is, you mentioned cheat codes, and I was curious how much or how little we would talk about cheat codes, but I want to say this specific thing to kind of tie my feelings up about the game. I mentioned several times now, this game is a game, and this game is super aware that it's a game and really proud of the fact that it's a video game. And nowhere is that more true than when you fight the final boss, because the final boss is a wall with an exposed brain that looks like the stereotypical, you know, Satan goat skull head. And it launches these little demon boxes out, and those little demon boxes turn into a variety of enemies that super murder you if you are not paying attention. That's the entire final level. It's just that giant tiered room with the elevator walls and the big skull face. If you type in the code ID clip, or I think you can also just do no clip, you can clip through the demon wall and see the severed head of John Romero on a spike. Yep. And you realize that when you are shooting rockets through the brain, you're not actually hitting the brain. If you look closely, they're going through the brain, which is a great way to tell the player there's something back there, right? Because they're not exploding on contact with the brain, but they are obviously causing damage. And if you go inside the monster's head, you see that the demon's brain is the head of John Romero, and you can attack him directly, and he makes like this, anguish face, like he's crying out in pain. And the fact that the true ending, if you want, right, the true final boss is hidden behind a cheat code. There is nothing you can do in game to get to that, forces you as the player to accept the fact that the cheat codes are a mechanic of the game. And what that made me realize is that the cheat codes are as thoughtfully weaved into the game DNA, maybe not as polished in a way, but as thoughtfully weaved into the game DNA as the assist mode is into Celeste. If you're lost and you cannot figure out where a key is, clip through the wall and just go to the exit. If you are low on ammo, just give yourself more ammo. If you're really, really stuck and you just want to get to the next level, turn on God mode. Like, these are things that you can just turn on and off with a couple keystrokes, or I'm sure there's probably a menu on the PS4 or any of the console versions, right? Like, these are things that they don't just say like, oh, well, if you had a cool friend who gave you their notebook with all the cheat codes in it. No, these are like core mechanics of the game that they expect you to enjoy using, just like you can enjoy using any of the guns or solving problems in a handful of different ways. The cheat codes are really, we called them cheat codes, but now if you look at how they're woven into the game, it's really a kind of assist mode.
Yeah, no, that's a really salient observation. I completely agree. And yeah, it's in the new one, it's just a menu. The one final minor note that I had was the level design is hit or miss sometimes. There's a lot of places where the enemy placement is, I think, I just really enjoyed it in the sense that there was at least a dozen or so times where like you walk into a room and there's a bunch of like nondescript, like kind of like jutting out areas, and there's the key that you need, and you're like, there's demons behind those doors, isn't there? I know there's demons behind those doors. Like, so, but the thing is that, like it builds tension, like, cause what's going to happen, like, so the minute that you're like, okay, I'm going to get this key, I'm going to turn around and, shoot all these bad guys, right? Or like you're walking down a hallway and you're like, all right, man, like a green armor, that's pretty sweet. All right, some med packs, cool. But backpack full of ammo, oh no, like so the fact that the game, again, it's a game, it's very gamey, so the fact that it telegraphs those things to you to be like, hey, here's a whole bunch of stuff, no reason, you're like, no, there's a reason, isn't there? You're gonna hit me again, aren't you? Like, it's I don't know. Like, so I really enjoyed the enemy placement, especially because one of the things I said to Megan was, I was like, this game should just be the lessons learned for police officers in training, learning how to clear a room, because every time I went barreling into a room without checking my corners first, I got my lunch yet, because there was always bad guys there. And I know that that's like a thing where, like they train police officers, like when you enter a room, make sure that, like you enter, 2 by 2, and that this person turns left and this person turns right, because people hide in these areas. And every time I didn't follow that rule, I got my lunch yet. So I enjoyed the enemy placement.
Well, do you mind if we, because there's a great segue, I think, into whether or not it held up. You want to transition? So what I really believe about this game, if I haven't said it enough times, is this game is a game, and it's really proud of the fact that it's a video game that is meant to be enjoyed. And the factoid that I've been saving for this moment is Doom and Doom 2 are about empowering the player. Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal are about empowering the player. Doom 3 desperately wanted to be Resident Evil, and it turned out that that's not why people play Doom, because for all of the hell imagery and the blood and the gore and the demons and the things jumping out of corners, this game is not scary. Nothing about this game is scary. This is like that weird kid. Maybe you were this weird kid who sat in class in middle school and like drew skulls and blood and zombies and stuff. Like it's a child's idea of the kind, because they don't understand death and hell, and those things aren't scary to them. They're just novel. Like that is why Doom 3 kind of sucked. And most people who were fans of Doom didn't love it, but Doom 1, Doom 2, Doom 2016, and Doom Eternal are super successful because people come to Doom to be the Doom guy, right? Later renamed Doomslayer, right? They want to be, I know it's cliche to death at this point, but like, you're not trapped on Earth with the demons. The demons are trapped on Earth with you. Like, the reason you go find the portal to hell is because they're all trying to leave. They're like, there's this one guy who like won't stop killing us. Right. And so it is with a fairly heavy heart that like, I have to give this game a nostalgia monocle, because first off, you cannot play it with the original controls. So like if we're being true to form, this game is unplayable with the original controls. So even if you were going to give it no nostalgia goggles, you have to slap the asterisk on there. The thing that pushed me into monocle territory is the 12-year-old, we know this is a video game humor. Like, it started to wear on me hard. And I think if I'd been able to play the game over a longer time instead of the compressed review time, and I could have spaced it out a little more, I might have been more tolerant of that. But it got me to the point where I was just like, John Romero, you're very clever. Can I please just play your video game? Can you please make me not have to go look up which wall to hump? Like that feeling just eventually wore me down, and it bummed me out, because there's so much about this game that I love and that I would highly recommend, and really do go read Masters of Doom. It's a phenomenal book, and play the game, but just like be willing to stop when you're bored, because I was like, oh, damn, like this is a sad nostalgia monocle. There's a tier of frustration behind this nostalgia monocle, because I wanted to give it no nostalgia goggles required so bad. But I was like, between original controls being unacceptable and the trolley level design, I was just like, I gotta do the right thing. Gotta go with my heart.
Yeah. And I can respect that. You're wrong. But I can respect No, I mean, like, so again, you definitely do have to do the asterisk of the fact that, yes, the original controls are just straight up broken. But kind of the way I'm sidestepping that logically is that it's just like saying, you know, like, oh, well, if you want to play this old video game, you have to emulate it. Like, because the software, the hardware that the game was played on no longer exists and you cannot find it. So, and on top of that, I don't think that people are likely to. I think that if you say like, hey, I think I'm going to go boot up Doom and give it a shot, like, you're more likely to come across the version of it that has been fixed than the version of it that has not. If
you buy this on Steam, because you could buy Doom 2, the original Doom 2 on Steam, and it runs it in an emulator for you. So it's not a modernized version. It really is the old version, with the single caveat that when you launch it, it says, you want good controls or controls? And it defaults to good controls. But in every other way, you are playing the original, emulated. So it's like, even getting that close to the source, right? They're still like, but the mouse.
Yeah, but don't. So all that being said is, I definitely think that there were some things about the game that I don't think held up, but overall, the game as a whole, I definitely think it held up. I mean, honestly, I enjoyed playing this game. I think that, it's one that I could pretty much, if you like the genre of first person shooters, I could pretty unabashedly, recommend it. So for me personally, no nostalgia goggles required, so much so that, I think that the best way that we could try to see whether or not like where this game has gone, right? They would still be nostalgic in principle, right? Would be if we were to play like Doom 2016. Right? I want to play Doom 2016.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself The fanfare is gone. There's no player two there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creep in with the edge of a smile. You realize again what you lost for a while. You're gonna think back much less on how you saved the day